He actually passed on 1/11, November 1st, which I know now is no accident. Hello, listeners. Hello, everybody. It's so nice to be with you today. My name is Amber Kasic, and I am an evidential medium, also a teacher and a professional in education for 20 years. And in 2020, I had a death experience with my father that completely transformed my life and my worldview. Developed spontaneous mediumship abilities, communication with him as well as others, and I love to share this story of hope. Really, among all things, it's about hope and beauty and grace and love. My shared death experience with my dad occurred about 12 hours before he actually took his last breath, but I learned very much through the experiences and as an evidential medium that death is very fluid. I have found myself in communication and mediumship sessions with people that have not yet technically physically passed. And so it's such a fluid process. And about 12 hours before my dad died, I was laying next to him in the living room. He passed from cancer, so he was under hospice care, and I was holding his hand, and I just sort of, almost not even by choice, completely stopped thinking because I knew I'd already had my last conversation with my dad. That was very painful to think about. It was painful to think about never hearing his voice again. It was painful to think about some things in the past and things left unsaid and done. And so I really just became fully present. I stopped thinking and focused purely on the unconditional love. Because in this moment, he was still my dad. He was still here. I was able to feel the warmth of his hand, and I loved my dad very much. And in that moment of pure presence, and I know that's key, it's key to mediumship, it's key to having spiritual experiences of your own. In that moment of full presence, I suddenly just sort of saw swirls of violet and purple blush kind of circling in my mind's vision. My eyes were closed. Um, and, I didn't really think anything of it. I just kind of thought that was weird that I was seeing this. But then I felt this slow warmth go from the top of my head all the way to the tips of my toes, and I remember thinking, oh, the sun must be coming in the window and just kind of doing this weird stuff, playing tricks on me, right? But then, with full clarity, and I didn't use words like this before, I was not necessarily, I wasn't one who ever had any type of spiritual experience. But I felt then kind of like I would describe it as a whoosh actually come in my back. It's like wind, but not wind because it wasn't physical on my skin. I felt it come into my body. And, a force. A force would just be a great word for it. And this whoosh of this force paused right here in the center of my chest, what I would now call the heart center. Again, words that I did not use before at all. And it was doing very slow circles around the center of my chest, almost like causing me to be aware of it because it was so odd. The experience was so new, something so unknown to me that I had no ability to judge it because I had nothing to judge it against. I just was in the moment and present with what was happening. And that slow swirling began to slowly travel over to my shoulder, and then it paused there. It's almost like my awareness was just following what was happening to me and registering in my brain that I was having this experience. And as it paused at my shoulder, it slowly traveled down my arm And again, this is like on the inside of my body. It was not a feeling on my skin. And that feeling went into my hand, and I was holding my dad's hand. And then I just knew. I knew it with total certainty, like knowing the sky is blue, that that feeling went into my dad too. And I gave him a huge hug, and I said to him, Dad, I don't know what that was, but I know you felt it too. And you take all that love and light in your core with you. Again, words I didn't really use before, love and light. I mean, I'd heard that expression, but it wasn't really a part of my being. But it just, I don't know, it just came out. It felt so authentic because what I was really saying is take all the goodness that is the essence of all of us. And this is kind of what I understand now. In our essence, without all the gunk, the stuff, the experiences that, sometimes give us negative thoughts, and without all of that, we're love. And I was saying, take all that love and light that's in your core with you, the purity of who you are, and leave the old news behind. That's what I said. And what I meant by that was like all that junk, the arguments we had, just, the nonsense. Leave that. And you take what's truly your essence with you, and it's okay if you go now. And I had to go home. It was the first time in a week. I needed to be with my family for a few hours, so I had to leave. And I felt such an immense peace, and I just knew in the depth of me, my dad and I are eternally bonded. I didn't have a context for what that would mean. I didn't even think about what it meant. Like, what does that mean, we're eternally bonded? It didn't matter. I just knew it. And it gave me such a feeling of joy and peace. And I just knew everything was well, and he is fine, and I am fine. And as I went home, it was sort of weird. My behavior was weird. I had the music on. I was singing because I was so happy. And, during someone's passing, that just doesn't make a lot of sense. But I just think in my core, I knew this bond existed and nothing else mattered. And when I was done with my family activity, I actually hesitated going back to the house because I wanted that to be my last moment with my dad. It was so beautiful. But I did. I went back to the house, and he actually passed on 1/1/1, November 1st, which I know now is no accident. All Saints Day. My dad is no saint, but I know that's no accident. He passed on 1/1/1, and in the middle of the night during the daylight savings time change here in the United States. So actually, we weren't sure at first what time to write on his death certificate. He passed during a time when we're sort of absent of time, so to speak. None of that is an accident. I know now that it was all supposed to be. So that was really the shared death moment, that experience of transcendence. I definitely felt in general like I was on just a journey with him, even though I couldn't see the other side. But his dying process became very intuitive to me. I have no nursing training, I have no medical background, but it felt very important to me that I accompany him as far as God, as far as I could, as far as I would be allowed. And that morning, just hours after he passed, I heard his voice in my mind, and I of course thought I made it up. Of course, I have to be making that up. But it was very interesting what I heard. I had gone to a park just to sort of decompress from the emotions of the week. But looking back now, what I know is that whether he was given the duty or he was offered the duty, I'm not sure. He was about to be my guide to understanding this greater reality, to understanding a greater essence of myself beyond just my thoughts and my personality and what I think is me, how we label ourselves, we're so much more than that. And he was about to take me on a journey to discover my own soul, my soul self, and then eventually he also developed my mediumship abilities as well. It's thought that the number 111 is about new beginnings, and I think that makes a lot of sense here. It's also about personal transformation, which makes a lot of sense here. And I believe there was transformation and new beginnings for both of us, my dad and myself. All of us, when we pass, are going to have new understandings about ourselves, our lives, our actions, why we act the way we do, why we have conflicts with others' reasons for their actions, and so on and so forth. And he and all of us will, in the beyond, are going to have what I call a mountaintop perspective of life. All of us, we're all down in the valley, right? Every day, we're going to work, we're having interpersonal relationships with others. We have our family histories. We have things that happen to us in life. We're down in the valley. And down in the valley, there are conflicts. There are conflicts that are external, just things in life. There are conflicts with people. There are inner conflicts, trying to make big decisions, all these kinds of things. But when we're absent of this physical body and absent of our brain, absent of our egos, really, which is natural. Ego isn't a bad thing. It's a part of who we are. But when we're absent of that, we get put on mountaintop view. And my dad, in his sort of 111 new beginning and transformation, has that now big understanding and bigger picture of what we all can come to understand, and we don't have to wait to die, really, to understand a lot of it. But I didn't know any of that yet. And so for him, he's on this new journey of transformation. And a part of that is going to be bringing me along on a journey of transformation. But I am so grateful that I was given the opportunity and proud of myself for deciding to act on the opportunity and follow the journey. To be able to have this personal transformation. I'm still myself. I still have my same personality, my same beliefs, my same morals and ethics, but I so much more am able to take a higher perspective on things. I have a lot less conflict with others. It's not that I don't have conflict still, but I find myself more able to kind of stand on the mountaintop because my dad helped give me this bigger perspective, not only of life, how we're all connected and we're all just on our own journeys, but he also helped me go down a path of discovering myself as a soul and what I feel like, what my soul feels like. We are not physical beings that have a soul out there somewhere, and maybe a couple handful of us get some kind of experience where we get to experience that. Or we're not physical beings that have to wait until we die to understand our soul selves. I developed mediumship abilities spontaneously through my communication with my dad. It really, everything was a journey and growth in belief, first of all. Were kind of like three things happening at once. It was a journey of belief that I believed I was really experiencing communication from him. And then there was a journey of surrender, because our brains are logical, they're analytical, it's what they're here for. They're beautiful, they're supposed to do that job. But it also can be a barrier to these spiritual experiences. It's okay to question. It's okay to be skeptical. I absolutely would assume for months on end I have to be inventing this somehow. Um, but eventually the communication became so evidential with him that I could not deny that I was connecting with and hearing from my dad. And, those experiences led to a meditation journey for me, which is so essential to having spiritual connections. And then through that meditation journey, and the more I experienced communication with my dad, it eventually led to communication with others. Discovered, if you will, or decided to accept is a better term for it. When I decided to accept, I'm a medium, I never would have imagined this for myself. I didn't want to be a medium. It wasn't fine to be a medium. And actually, even when I discovered that I had the ability and I finally really believed it for myself because I couldn't deny the repeated evidence over and over, I stopped experimenting, if you will, with mediumship for almost a year because this isn't about being fascinated with myself. This is about service and love and a gift of grace and beauty and hope to those that sit with an evidential medium. And I wasn't ready for that responsibility. I wasn't I wasn't ready for it. I wasn't ready to be a person who might be able to offer that healing. Because it is a really big responsibility. We have to have integrity, be honest. Not everything is always perfect in a session. And it was scary. But I had this moment. It was actually the year anniversary of, I'm sorry, it was the year after my dad passed his birthday. He would have been 76. And my family and I went up to my childhood home. And I have no family that lives there anymore. There's just a man that lives in the house now. But we wanted to spread my dad's ashes behind the home. And it's in the woods and has, some property. It was my dad's favorite place. And of course I had to ask permission of the man that lived there now. So I knocked on the door and a little small talk. I asked permission. He said, sure, you can do that. And we had a beautiful little moment where we spread my dad's ashes behind the house. Well, later that day in meditation, just in my regular meditation moment, all of a sudden this man's family, what I perceived to be his family, connected with me in meditation. His brother, his mother. I didn't even know if he had a brother, but I felt this man and I just somehow knew. It's like I just knew this is that man in the home's brother. And he helped me feel in my stomach like little needle pinpricks. And I knew he had to give himself daily injections, something that specific. I just knew it. And this is how mediumship works. I have physical feelings of health conditions, at times manners of people's passing. That is one way that to me it's so visceral and tangible. And so he helped me feel that. And then he showed me like a chalkboard, an apple, a symbol of being a teacher. And he gave me a little message of appreciation for his brother. And then I felt his mother. And she came into the connection. And I just knew this is a mother, and I know it's the mother of this man in the home. And she showed me that she loved walking to the mailbox every day. She loved her mailbox flowers. She had planted flowers in the mailbox. And then she showed me a kitchen pot holder. It was white with a green and yellow border and a little flower in the center, green and yellow. And it came with this knowing it's been passed down in the family. And she also had a message of appreciation for her son. Thank you for taking care of me. And they sort of exited my awareness. And I was left with this image of a bird in a box. That's all I knew. Special bird in a box is sort of a vague image. And I wrote all of this down on a hotel writing pad. And I thought to myself, when, that experience is over, this feels like such a mandate. I have to go tell this man this, but also, I don't go around saying I'm a medium. I still wasn't, I accepted that it was real, but I wasn't accepting that label for myself because it's weird. I get it. It's weird. And I was afraid what would people think of me, and, I just wasn't ready. But it felt like such a mandate. I have to tell him this. And so I decided to be really brave. I was going to go back to his house. I'm going to tell him the truth. But also, I'm not just going to give him all the information. I don't think that is, I think there's a piece of integrity here where we say, I'm a medium. I believe I have this experience. Would you like to see it or hear it? And that was the plan. I was just going to ask him if he would like the paper. So I did. I went over there. He came out of the house before I could even knock on the door. And just to make small talk, I saw a little grave marker in the yard, like if he had probably buried a dog. So I decided I'm going to make small talk with that. And I said to him, his name was Larry, "Hey Larry, I see that marker over in the yard. You must have had a dog. We had a dog here too. His name was Thunder." And he came up to me and he looked at me and he kind of gave me this half smile. And his face to me said, "Should I really tell her?" That's what his face said to me. And then he must have decided I felt safe. And he said, "No, it's not a dog." He said, "My brother lived with me for a while before he died. And one day a hummingbird flew in the window and it died, and my brother was so upset. We made that box together and buried the hummingbird." And I looked down at my paper, and the first thing I had written down was "special bird box." And in that moment, I felt safe. And I just knew he'll accept this. And this is the beauty of spirit in these connections. They knew. It's why they ended with that. They knew that I would see that marker. They knew I would want to make small talk about something and pick that. Or probably more so, they directed me to see that white marker, knowing that I would talk about it. Because they knew that as soon as he said that, I would feel safe in giving him this paper. It took him a lot of courage to do that. And he looked at it all and he read it all. And yes, his brother had diabetes. He did have to give himself daily injections. And yes, his mother had mailbox flowers. She was the only person allowed to walk to the mailbox every day because that was her daily walk once she was too elderly. And then he said, "Hold on a minute, I'll be right back." And he went in the house and he came out a few minutes later. And in his hand, he had that kitchen pot holder, white with a green and yellow flower, just like I described. And he said, "Amber, I had to go through boxes in the basement to find this. It is impossible for you to have known about this any other way. My grandfather," so his mother's dad, "made this for her when she was a little girl. So yes, it was passed down in the family, just as I had written on the paper." And we both were kind of just surprised and a little bit in awe, and I don't think he knew what to make of the whole thing. But we exchanged phone numbers. I lived 8 hours away. He called me a week later, and he said, "Amber, I've been thinking about this all week, and I have one question for you. I believe it, but why? Why me?" And I smiled, and immediately I knew the answer, because I had been asking myself this same question for a year. Why me? Why did I have these spiritual experiences? Why did I experience these connections with my dad? And the answer is the same. Because you are worthy. You are worthy of miracles in your lives. The message of all of my experiences that is repeated over and over is kind of what I just shared. Every single one of us is already divine, already whole, and already worthy. We don't have to prove ourselves to anyone. I think it's a bit possibly of a misconception that there are certain things that we have to believe and do in this life to be loved by God. And, you can fill in the word God with what suits you. What I have felt, both in my own spiritual experiences and in mediumship, and how I equate it is that God is the more perfect parent than you could ever imagine. And I don't know about any of you listeners who are a mom, but I know when I became a mom, I felt a whole new type of love that I had never experienced before. My child, if my child did something that was pretty awful and caused me a lot of disappointment, I would of course be very disappointed and so on and so forth. But really, could I ever, no matter what, could I ever stop loving my child? And this is what I have felt from Spirit, from God, from Source. We are loved more perfectly than any mother could ever love their child. And so, yes, we will have to make peace with our mistakes, our misgivings, if you will. We're going to experience the harms and the joys that we cause others, but we're going to be given that mountaintop perspective. Why we acted this way. We're going to feel how the other person felt. We're going to feel what their perspective was that caused this conflict. We're going to be lovingly guided to understand the unity of us all. I have a strong belief from all of my experiences that our collective consciousness is important. Meaning we all have our own individual consciousness, what we believe, the things we think, our attitudes. Are we mostly in a place of positivity, negativity? Of course, we all can have our moments and vary between those, but in our essence, kind of where are we generally? And then there's collective consciousness. As a whole human group, kind of how are we evolving in our consciousness? And this is important. It's important for our growth. It influences, I strongly believe, world events, how we behave toward one another, and so on and so forth. And even more reason why, going back to this idea of taking that mountaintop perspective, it doesn't just improve your life. It improves our collective consciousness. And as our collective consciousness rises, it's my belief that so we shall rise too, as a species. We're not all supposed to be the same. The goal is not to all believe the same thing, to all become the same type of person. That's not the goal. The goal is to take a mountaintop perspective. Because when we remove ourselves from all that ego stuff where we get mired in our muck and our emotions, then we're being very human, but we are not only human. So it's less about, I don't really foresee predictions, but I'm also not asking. But I would share that instead of focusing on what might happen, focus on how you can contribute to a more peaceful you and a world that takes more of a mountaintop perspective. You influence those around you in ways that you do not understand. And that's a part of our collective consciousness as well. So if I'm mired in my muck and all that makes me angry and I'm fired up and I'm, it's nothing wrong with being passionate. But when I get like that, that energy spreads to others around me. And when you are able to be more loving, when you are able to be more calm, when you are able to be more peaceful, that energy spreads to others around you. Even if they're not aware of it, we feel each other's energy on subtle levels. and that influences our collective consciousness. It influences how we act toward one another, how we act toward each other in societies, and so on and so forth. Thank you so much for having me here today. I love sharing in these conversations. It brings a lot of joy and just love to my heart. I share not only my experiences, but also offers of evidential mediumship on my website, which is www.natureswayopen.com. And of course, you can find me on social media, mostly Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And those are at Nature's Way Open as well, or going to my website,